advance. We go
Yeah, but
live.
you're not going to edit it.
No, we're
No,
not.
well, we never edit it. So
No,
that's, I
Okay.
mean, we don't edit it no matter what, for the most
no,
part.
I'm
no,
going
we
into
don't.
autopilot. Wait a minute. Wait a minute.
Yeah.
Sorry. Okay.
All
Okay.
right,
I'm with
so
you. I'm with you.
the systems are telling me that we're live now and streaming and recording, so that's what I was looking for. So here we go. 5, 4, 3.
So, Kip, what are we going to talk about today on episode 194 of the Cyber Risk Management Podcast?
You know, this phishing thing is so out of hand that we're going to really dive now deeply into why. What makes us sitting ducks for phishing attacks? And I'll give you a clue right now. It has something to do with our brains and being on autopilot. And really the question is, well, what can we do about it? Well, as you know, Jake, I invited a guest to be here. Everybody can see that Lisa's here. So Lisa Petrocchi Merriman is our guest. She's here. And what is she? She's a highly experienced executive coach, and she's a leader of organizational culture transformation. But she's more than that. So Lisa helped me understand something important when I spoke with her recently. Most of the time during our workday, we're actually running on some form of autopilot, and that makes us way more vulnerable to phishing attacks than we realize. We want to unpack this and share it with all of you. So Lisa, thank you so much for being here, for being our guest. I would love for you to introduce yourself to everybody.
Well, thank you, Kip and Jake. It's really delightful to be here today, and I'm really excited about this topic and sharing it with you and your listeners. So, again, I'm Lisa Petrocchi Merriman, and I'm an executive coach and associate program leader with Mark Kamen and Associates. So, I consult and coach professionals on all levels on high performance, leadership, and team and organizational development. And for over 42 years, we've worked with a range of companies from Fortune 100 companies all the way down to dynamic startups. So, we've worked with Oracle, Dell, IBM, and places like that. So, but I also love neuroscience, and I found this niche while working as a trauma treatment recovery therapist for nearly 20 years, working with children and adults, helping them recover from trauma. And I followed the work of several pioneers in the field who are neuropsychiatrists. And so from there, I distilled this information down and brought it to the work world about 7 years ago now. And I had my own little consulting company called Works Well, and I brought wellness and resilience training into the corporate world. And I also had the privilege of working at Harvard University for a year, helping them, brought in a toolkit to help them recover quickly from stress and overwhelm so they could get back to being productive while on campus. And this was during COVID, so no fun
Wow.
for anyone.
Yeah.
And now you're hanging out with weird cybersecurity people. Welcome.
Well, I just read it. One of my partners just sent me an article this morning that was basically saying, he said, "You think it's okay if I set an out of office on every Friday to say something about, I'm not responding to everything because I'm overwhelmed by my general availability, empowered by technology." It's a real issue. It's like we're never off, right? We're always reachable. And I suspect the fact that we're always reachable, particularly via email, is part of the phishing problem. I mean, it's definitely gotten worse.
It has absolutely gotten worse. Okay, let's dive right in. So, Lisa, we help our listeners understand, like, what is autopilot mode for the human brain? Like, what is it really? And what's the connection with cybersecurity and phishing? Like, help us get that connection, please.
Yeah. So first of all, I'd like to just frame this entire conversation as information, as phishing awareness, if you will, and building cyber attack prevention. So autopilot is actually a necessary and useful brain function, believe it or not. And what it does is it helps our brain conserve a little bit of energy throughout our day. The brain likes to conserve that so it can get ready for big bursts of energy where you have to perform or public speak or do something that's stressful for you. So it's trying to conserve as often as possible. So it allows us to handle routine tasks And things like just think about your morning and how you get ready for work. That's
Hmm.
all rote memory. That's all you could be on autopilot, meaning while you're doing everything you're doing, brushing your teeth, making coffee, packing a lunch, whatever, your brain is also thinking about other things, whether it's lists, things you should have said or done, things that you want to resolve, for example.
Hmm.
So another really interesting one that most of us have probably had, we get in our car, we go from point A to point B, we arrive at point B, and we think, oh, I'm here. A little
Somehow.
alarming. How did I get here? Right.
Yeah, I was going to
And
ask if it's related to that phenomenon of like, I know I must have done something, but I don't remember doing this thing.
exactly. How did I do that? Or how did I use that sharp knife to make all these sandwiches one
Yeah,
after another?
or why am I in this room? What did I come in here for?
Right. You've been, we've said in, the mental health field, there's a phrase called, your brain otherwise attending to an internal dialogue that's going on with you.
Hmm.
So this is one of those perplexing things, but it's actually here to help us out, believe it or not. But it's really more of a nuisance. And it's a nuisance, especially with phishing attacks, because when we're in autopilot mode, we don't really have the full capacity to critically evaluate or interpret what's truly going on around us. Like we're not fully 100% conscious.
Hmm.
So, for instance, if you're at work, you might then get an email, and I've done this before. An email comes in, and I quickly read it because I have 15 other things I'm doing, and I misunderstand it. And I decide, uh-oh, this is time sensitive, or I'm not sure I really get the tone. What am I reading between the lines? And then I might go into autopilot. So one thing I want to say is that in autopilot, um, it kind of wants to take us away from uncomfortable situations. So I don't know if
What's
there's
this?
something going.
Okay.
Yeah.
That makes. I mean, and it's interesting too, because like, and this is not in the script. Kip, I'm going off script. Can you believe it?
It's stunning.
Aren't you
You've never
stunned?
done this. Do you
I've
need
never
help?
done it. Yeah.
Wait, I'm feeling uncomfortable, and I might go on autopilot. So I'm gonna
Yeah.
hold on to my seat. Okay. So
So
I'm
no,
ready.
my question is that is that feeling of overwhelm was one of the reasons that people start to feel that way because their day is composed of so many things where they almost like they're not able to go on autopilot as often as the brain might like. I don't know. I just thought of that because it's very hard for like if you don't have a lot of routine tasks, I guess is what I'm saying during the course of a workday. And I'm wondering how, in some ways, like when we talk about phishing, which I know we're going to do, autopilot is a concern, which we'll get to. But I also just kind of want to think: is it also do we also become more vulnerable when we are overwhelmed and just trying to like rush through and fix, get to everything, whether or not we're really on autopilot?
Absolutely. Yes. So that's my short answer to your question. Yes, and I can get more into that. So before I do, I'll just reference a conversation like the first time I spoke with you, Kip. We were
Uh-huh.
talking about cyber attacks, and you had said to me, so I'm gonna get to your point, Jake, in just
Yeah,
a
yeah.
second. You had said to me, Lisa, this is more than just a cyber crime and a fiduciary crime.
Mm-hmm.
It's actually a person to person crime
Mm-hmm.
because it attacks the amygdala.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when my brain lit up because that's my niche. So and then it germinated our podcast today. So Jake, you're right on point. The autopilot is kind of like one of the could be the first on ramps for the brain to go into amygdala hijack. It's not always, but it hovers there, meaning you're not fully conscious and in a calm mode when you're in autopilot. And even though it's a normal part of your brain trying to conserve energy, it also kind of takes its hands off the wheel, so to speak, so that the amygdala can also step in
Mm-hmm.
and add to kind of exponentially speeding up the response to threat.
Yeah, and
So,
for and
Oh.
for people not wondering, the amygdala is the lizard brain, right? It's the fight or flight mechanism. It's that primitive part that doesn't really think in the way that we think of when we use our
Right.
frontal cortex.
Correct. So the lizard brain, it's been called the lizard brain. It, it's really known as the limbic system, and it is the first to build in the developing human being, right? So all throughout our life, even in the embryo, it's one of the first things to be developed. And then as we mature, the brain continues to grow until we're about age 28 to 34. And that explains a lot of things, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
It does.
and
Mm-hmm.
and what it's growing is the prefrontal cortex or the neocortex, where that is your executive functioning, where all of your logic and reasoning, all of your great training, all of your fabulousness is housed. And when we start to experience threat or something we're uncomfortable about, the amygdala will shut that off, and adrenaline actually shuts the neocortex or prefrontal cortex, shuts it down. So we don't have access to logic. We can't even hear the sound of our own voice sometimes.
So when somebody
moments.
says I wasn't in my right brain, or I wasn't
In my right
thinking.
mind.
Yeah, my right mind.
Yeah.
I wasn't thinking, right? They weren't.
Right.
Biologically.
Correct. And also when that is occurring, it doesn't logically pick up the sequence to thread the entire maybe situation or event that occurred, like let's say a car accident, that you're shut down for survival mode. And so people who've survived things like that don't often recall exactly what happened during the event, right? They remember before or after. And so it's very interesting because that part of the brain is also recording information and making sure things are even and smooth and all makes sense. And when it's offline, it's not available. So we have to record the memories other ways. So
interesting.
yeah, we could talk about that for hours.
So
but anyway.
so how does that connect it? Let's kind of tie this into phishing. How does that, like, I'm let's start by saying, I'm going through my day and I'm in autopilot mode, which I think a lot of people probably intrinsically kind of understand and know what that's like. So an email comes in. It looks like it's from my bank or the boss or IT asking me to like log in and like verify something. What happens if I'm in autopilot?
Yeah. So when you're in autopilot, then, and going back to your original comment, many times we can feel rushed. So autopilot kind of, if you will, like maybe dullens our ability to be really sharp and focused because we're trying to quickly move through information. Okay. So then at that point, we're not picking up all of the information, and oftentimes we can misunderstand the information. So in your scenario, you're in autopilot, you're getting your emails and you're quickly going through them. You might not see every piece of information somebody wants from you. Or you think, oh, I know what this is about, right? This is familiar. So I'm just going to satisfy this email and get it going and get it off my plate. And that's where a lot of the phishing attacks are very successful. So during your day, you might accidentally overlook. And there's also a really interesting thing. Hackers intentionally create emails that will trigger automatic responses because somehow they've been able to get the virus to attach to your network or people within your own company. And this has happened to me. And then from there, the message is something that would normally come in from, let's say, one of your suppliers or a vendor. I'm thinking of a specific incident. And with the vendors, the vendor has said, we want to move up payments and we need this amount by this date. And the comptroller said, okay, because she was busy and she was rushed and it sounded familiar. And she went ahead and hit send, and like over $300,000 left the bank and went into the hackers' chambers. So they were able to trace it back and get insurance. But she realized, oh my gosh, I didn't even slow down to read the protocol. And that's when our conscious analytical mind has been offline and hasn't been able to say, like, wait, let
Mm-hmm.
me rethink this. Maybe I should call so and so. Let me get on the line with the vendor. That doesn't really make sense. So follow your gut, right? And then I have some ideas on how to slow it down.
Okay, but first I want to ask this
Yeah,
question, which
sure.
is there a way for us to know that we're in autopilot mode? I mean, like, it just seems like the purpose of autopilot mode is to conserve my brain energy. And so does that mean I don't know I'm in autopilot and susceptible to this? Or, like, could you say something about that?
Yeah, well, yeah. So in autopilot mode, I want you to know that the brain replays old patterns. And so when in pilot mode, it's looking for familiar patterns as well. Okay.
Mm,
And here's the wild thing: the old patterns and ways of relating to them do not have anything to do with the present moment and what's happening right now.
hmm.
Okay. So with that in mind, I want you to think about how susceptible, just think about your own day.
Mm-hmm.
You might find yourself, I've been thinking about X for the
Mm-hmm.
last 10 minutes, right? It's
Mm-hmm.
very subtle and we do it all the time. It's like second nature. So, it's also that voice that says, maybe I should have said this, or I wish I had done that. That would have really made a statement. Or sometimes
Mm.
people are planning retaliatory conversations and things like that. So it's very all encompassing when we're in autopilot.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Hmm.
So,
And
Fascinating.
other signs. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
well, I was going to say, I'm thinking of like that movie, The Secret Life of Walter Mitty, right? The guy that just sort of fuzzes out and has all these grand daydreams, and then just sort of like shockingly suddenly comes back to, his reality. And who knows what he's been doing, like physically, right? The part of his brain was sort of like on autopilot, keeping him breathing and keeping him from, walking in front of a bus and whatever else. So anyway, that's what I think of.
Okay. So that's a very extreme
It's an
example.
extreme example. Okay,
Extreme
but that's
example.
but that's fine because I
That's
often do
okay.
that. Everybody who listens to this podcast knows that I make extreme examples to make a point.
Excellent.
Yeah. Plus, sometimes
Great.
actually,
Okay.
Kip, come on, are you back?
Hello, what? Who are
Yeah.
you? What am I doing here?
Actually,
But
not
I
very
I
often.
do love that example because you're right. The rest of our autonomic nervous system, it's almost like sleepwalking, keeps
Mm-hmm.
us from stepping off the curb in the right way or avoiding the bus that's oncoming or whatever we're driving our car. Although sometimes there are fender benders. I don't know that it's always autopilot related, but there are mishaps that happen. But it is
Yeah.
kind of that time frame, like let's say you're about to give a big presentation or you're going to do something stressful and you bumble things, you drop things, you spill coffee on yourself. It's those moments where you're otherwise occupied, something
Yeah.
else, is really in your mind. And again, it's almost that fight flight thing as well. So
Mm-hmm.
the other thing you can check for is if you feel like you're somehow feeling uncomfortable, irritable, maybe you're feeling like you're starting to get sick. Um, those are also warning signs that you might be vulnerable to going into autopilot. Let's look at it
Mm.
that way.
Mm-hmm.
And then
Maybe
another thing is
a little tired or bored. Is that also? I mean, is that to
boredom
me
is
feels
great.
like
Yeah,
boredom feels like the biggest risk, right? If you're
right.
when you're bored or not fully engaged, the risk of fully slipping into autopilot mode seems intuitively really high.
I would agree with you. And our brain, once again, loves to avoid uncomfortable situations, whether it's social situation or boredom. Boredom is almost like right down there before or just below fear of death, right? is boredom. Nobody wants to be bored. So yeah, good point. And then maybe you're doing a task you didn't want to do, you didn't sign up for, you don't like it. So it's there then. Um, what else was I thinking? Oh, yeah, there's also just our natural rhythm. So for most people, we have a energy slowdown between like hours 2 and 5 p.m.
3 o'clock
And
sleepies.
there you go. That's right. Another one is if you get dehydrated or you get that low blood sugar feeling, that's what I tend to get, or your stomach's rumbling, or you're hangry, right? Angry, irritable, hungry. You might need some protein. So anytime your system is vulnerable or running depleted, maybe you didn't get enough sleep the night before or what have you, these are all times when you might be more vulnerable to going into autopilot and being susceptible to a phishing attack.
There's a funny thing that someone told me that was a surprising statistic to learn. But if you're driving and you have to go to the bathroom real bad, it's almost as much. It's almost as distracting, or as distracting as having an illegal blood alcohol content level. Which,
Wow.
if you think about it, is actually does make sense, right? It's very interesting how these types of biological functions really, really, really will get in the way of brain. I mean, we're not, there is the mind-body connection is just so real.
It's, yes, I would say they're inextricable, really. But
Yes.
and I think sometimes somehow our culture, we're just kind of really getting the hang of that. I'm starting to see that. So the other thing I want to add is that with autopilot, you're not doing it wrong. It's just the way our brain is wired to manage threats and uncomfortable situations. And also, it's, again, maybe a precursor step possibly to a threat response. And it helps us get away from uncomfortable situations. And by the way, what I mean by threat response is the limbic system of our brain, again, hardwired to deal with life as if we're still primitive human beings facing threats to our very survival, like outrunning or hiding from a predator. So that fear, just the idea of outrunning like a velociraptor, I'm like, oh. But that's the way some people think about public speaking or being on podcasts or, having to deal with certain types of stressful incoming stimuli from work. Like, I need that now, right?
Yeah. So like white collar workers are kind of over muscled, right? Because we have a limbic system that's far too powerful for like what we encounter on a regular basis.
So you're saying professionals who are working in modern business, we've been conditioned to perform and get things done, so we're really susceptible.
Yeah,
I want to ring the bell and do it well.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, I think, and when you're in front of
so.
a computer all day, I mean, look, I mean, it's the risk. I'd be fascinated to get studies on the success of phishing attacks and who is clicking on it, but I'd be shocked if a lot of phishing is successful from a mobile phone. But it might be. I mean, and then the other side of it would be, who is clicking on things. I'm thinking of the difference between an electrical lineman who's being sent out to climb up a pole and restring electrical wiring. They get email. I mean, right? Everyone probably has email, but I would bet it's more often the chair-bound office worker who is clicking on the emails quickly. But I don't know.
Except text-based phishing, yeah?
Yeah, but there's not. Yes, but I think it's also. I mean, there's just technically less you can do over SMS, right? Like you're not gonna get.
I mean, the NSA group, right? The ones that make Pegasus, the spyware, they can send us a no-click text message that will automatically install the malware. So I know that some of it can be really sophisticated.
Right.
Yeah, but if that were true, Kip, don't they just need your phone number and you're done?
Yeah, pretty much.
They do, and they do send it. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I know that's not like, I know that they don't have to trick you to do it, but I'm just pointing out that some of the attacks on mobile devices can be just as sophisticated, just different.
I wasn't saying, just different. And I was thinking really more about like, typically, I mean, yes, once you get into the mobile web, of course, right? That's obviously not a lot more people use the mobile web than use the desktop web.
So we figured out that being in autopilot makes us vulnerable to phishing attacks of all kinds. So Lisa, how do we get out of autopilot mode, or how do we like decrease our susceptibility to being fished in autopilot mode? What do we do?
Yeah, that's a great question. Another great question. So first, let's think about developing a new layer of self-awareness, especially while at work. So this might be new territory for some people, but maybe not. But you can start by asking yourself some questions where you kind of check in with your entire person, right? So for instance, you might say, just set a timer, like, am I experiencing stress right now, and or do I have any time deadlines that I suddenly feel increased stress about or frustration? So that's going to be a tip for you,
Hmm.
that you could go to autopilot if you don't take some intervention. Also, am I annoyed? Am I feeling a strong emotion, especially after reading an email? And how many times we go throughout our workday without feeling annoyed or irritated? I mean, that's kind of
Mm-hmm.
impossible sometimes, right? Also, am I just feeling awkward or uncomfortable? Is this a new setting? I don't feel like myself right now.
Mm.
And your brain might try and escape to protect you and ease things for you. Also, once again, am I dehydrated? Do I need a snack, protein boost? And the other one is, how am I breathing right now? So if we are starting to have shallow breathing, or you just suddenly, you set a timer, I have clients do this, to do breathing exercises. And sometimes they realize, like, oh my gosh, I haven't really been breathing, or
Mm.
I'm breathing really shallow. And that is quick. It doesn't get very deep. And when you're breathing shallow, your blood pressure is going up and your heart rate is going up, and you're activating the like fight flight. You're starting to get there.
Oh,
It's
interesting.
sympathetic nervous system, right? And that's also, you are very susceptible to tuning out and going into autopilot, like a reverie, like, oh my
Yeah.
God, I can't stand this. And why is it always like this? They
Yeah.
just never get it right. All of that stuff.
Self-awareness is the key. I don't know how much self-awareness does a typical person at work have? I don't know.
Great question. I don't know, because, most of us we're there, we're doing our best, we're giving
Mm-hmm.
our all, but it's
Mm-hmm.
stressful. And then
Yeah.
there's normal kind of work stress. When I was working, and doing some coaching at, Discovery Inc., as they merged with Warner Brothers, um, one of the leaders would talk about, well, she would say it's stress, but it's good stress, meaning, we got
Mm-hmm.
to get used to, we have to incorporate the fact that the body's just always going to have some type of stress. And really, that's the best way to get it moving, get the brain moving, is a little bit
Mm.
of additional stress, especially around
Yeah. Well, I
performance.
would call that performance anxiety, perhaps, right?
I don't know, but I
No?
do know that, yeah, I yeah, there's a lot of refinement there that I don't want to go into, but
Okay, okay,
but
okay. That
but
was a very
but
polite way of saying, no, Kip, that's not the direction we're taking this into. I'll stop. Okay.
well, just my mind starts to exponentially go, like, I geek
Right.
out from
Right.
really
I know, and this
unpacking
could
it.
go on for 2 hours, but I know we don't have that. Okay, so let's say I notice I'm in my autopilot mode somehow. I have some self-awareness and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm in autopilot. Now how do I snap out of it?
Right. And hopefully you'll be able to do that before you get to autopilot. Like, oh my
Mm-hmm.
gosh, my breathing's changed. Like, and so either way, you're in autopilot or you're realizing you could be.
Mm-hmm.
So I have about 4 or 5 different techniques that are helpful. And they're temporary and they're short term. Okay. So that means you might have to do this again in 10 minutes, but they're
Mm.
effective because they deal with the chemistry and neurochemistry of your brain. So one might be, getting a cold drink of water. Now, why might that be helpful? Well, there's a new sensory input coming into your system, and the hippocampus and amygdala go, hey,
Mm.
wait a minute. I got to do this over here.
Mm.
They're going to suss it out. And while it's sussing it out, it will disconnect from autopilot so that you can return back to being more focused.
Interesting.
Yeah. So it kind of lessens its grip, or um, it kind of helps disconnect it. Also, this can help out to make sure you don't go all the way into fight flight as well.
Mm.
Okay.
Okay.
So then another one is, if you have the opportunity, get up and walk around. Bipedal motion helps the brain say, okay, we're at rest and digest, we're safe, everything's okay, I can come out of hiding, or whatever it
Hmm.
is, right? The limbic system saying, no predators. It's good. I'm good.
Got it.
This is the parasympathetic nervous system activation. Also, you can do some deep breathing. And again, this is parasympathetic nervous system activation. Think of it like your parachute back down to calm, and then you can refocus. And then this is something I used to do prior to being on Zoom all the time, is I would have a notebook next to my computer and I would doodle sometimes to have my brain take a break. And so one of my cues is I want to procrastinate. Like, I don't want to do this next thing. So that's my cue. Like, okay, I'm going to doodle now for a little while. And so my brain gets interested, and I only really doodle for like 30 seconds or so, maybe a whole minute. And then I feel more refreshed to get started again. So, and then one that I talked with you about this, Kip, and you really liked this one. So it's with your hands, and you use all your fingers, and you take each finger pad and touch it onto your thumb. And so you would start with index finger, middle finger, ring finger, pinky, and you can start again, but backwards: pinky, ring, middle, index. Do it with me now. Let's see.
I'm doing it.
I practiced it this morning. And you want to do it so that you're coordinated, right? And so this takes concentration, and your amygdala is with you.
Okay.
And it's no longer trying to say your hair's on fire or anything bad is happening in your world for those moments, right? So again, very short term relief. But there are, we have a...
what's really hard is to try to have them going at different, like starting from different sides. I'm actually not sure it's possible.
Yeah, it's funny. You bring that up. On my Instagram, I get, brain exercises to help stave off dementia or whatever. So it has, your brain hemisphere is working a little bit different. Yeah, this is one of those. But we have a specialized curriculum that trains people how to sustain focus and break through like those old familiar patterns that the brain wants to look for. So those are those
helpful. Thank you.
Things that can sustain your relief, really, and your ability to be productive throughout your day.
So given that the connection to cyber risk, of course, is that if you can do these things, the idea is that you will be, somewhat less susceptible to a phishing attack during the course of your workday. But our listeners, of course, are going to be focused on just the cybersecurity side. So how do the listeners share what they've learned today with their teams? How can a cybersecurity team in particular be like, hey, I want everyone once an hour to do this thing with their fingers. I'm just like, which would totally be how I would approach it. But I'm curious what the longer answer is.
Well, I actually say going out for coffee once every hour would be even more fun. But it's a great question. I know. Great question, Jake. Well, first of all, let's think of this as awareness building and prevention. So with that, and this is such a new field, right? So I don't know, it'd be great to really have an opportunity to delve into all the research that's maybe going to be starting or already been done. But in the meantime, for prevention, if your listener is watching the podcast, they can take it back and show this podcast to their teams, right? Their organization. That would be a great way to do it. And then you could also, maybe people might be prone to wanting to teach some of these things to their staff, which would be okay, but it's not optimal. And here's why. The health of your organization and its digital security affects really your bottom line, right, of your business's success. So you want to get this right, and you want to get it done right. So keeping your organization's assets safe and keeping your organization operating smoothly might take something like an inoculation, is the way I want to look at it. And that means you could go to somebody who specializes in this kind of training. So our firm does specialize in training and coaching professionals how to become highly effective at recognizing and disrupting those old brain patterns that get in the way of being fully present and fully conscious and aware during their workday, and laser focused and productive at work. So that's I think those are some options.
Yeah, so that's interesting. It's not just about phishing protection, but there's actually other benefits too. Business value, as I would call it, like increased productivity is one that you just mentioned, which I just jumped right out to me. So yeah, that's great. And an inoculation, I like that too, because we often talk about cybersecurity risk management as taking a public health kind of approach, right?
Exactly.
That's
Right.
useful.
Right. Like this is, it's been all of these malwares. I think we refer to them as viruses, right? And I'm the
Yeah.
least digital data
Hmm.
person, but if you think of it as a virus and then inoculating your system and your mind, your awareness, and your business,
Hmm.
I think it's a really helpful start until we
Okay.
know more. Yeah.
Yeah, awesome. Well, we're
Yeah.
coming up on time, and I'm so glad that we were able to cover this important topic the way that we had planned to. So, thank you so much,
Sure. Yeah.
Lisa
Thank
and Jake.
you.
Now, as we wrap up, I wanted to ask about what if people wanted to know more, like how could they learn more about you, about your work? And if I remember correctly from our preparation conversations, you'd even be willing to like get on a call with folks if they really wanted to. Is that still the truth?
Yeah, that would be great. I'm happy to give your listeners a 30-minute call to
Mm-hmm.
see what's going on and see how I can be helpful and see if there's an opportunity for us to work together. I'd be more than happy to do that. That'd be great.
And do you have a podcast or a website or a social media place that you would like, people who are interested to check out?
Well, we have our website, and I can say that out loud right now. We don't have a chat box to put it in, but
Yeah, that's okay.
and there's also my email, but the website is www.mka-world.com, or my email. Should I say that out loud?
You
My
can, but I'm also planning to put all of that in the show notes for folks.
Yeah, that's fine. Great.
Lisa's like, I don't want us to have to. No, that's just too much. I
It's
got you
too
out of it,
long.
so you're welcome.
Thanks.
Hey, Jake.
Perfect.
Jake, any last thoughts or questions for Lisa?
So many, but we'll have to have Lisa back to
We'll
make
do
that
part
happen.
two.
Okay. All right. Happy to do that. This wraps up this episode of the Cyber Risk Management Podcast. Today, we learned how autopilot mode makes us almost sitting ducks for phishing attacks, and we learned what we can do about it and how we might be able to help our teammates and other folks at work, what that would be like. And we did all of that with our guest. We had Lisa Petrocchi Merriman with us, and we're so glad that you were with us, Lisa. So thanks, everybody. We'll see you next time.
Yeah. Thank you,
See
Kip
you
and
next
Jake.
time.
This was just a pleasure. Thank you. Bye-bye.